It was a crime which pushed everything else off the front pages. 3 men, all known criminals, found shot dead in the Essex countryside. It was a cold-blooded, professional killing. The victims had many enemies, but which one wanted them executed?
And welcome back to a new video on the Essex Boys case. As always, if you are enjoying the content, please do give the video a thumbs up. And if you're interested in the Essex Boys case, or simply true crime in general, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. 3 drugs chiefs were slain with cold and merciless efficiency by Avenger accomplices as they sat in a Range Rover, a court heard yesterday. The 3 were killed after a dispute over a smuggled shipment of poor quality cannabis from the continent, the Old Bailey was told. They were lured to a remote farm track in Essex in December 1995 on the promise of a substantial future cocaine deal, the prosecution said. But as Patrick Tate, 37, Anthony Tucker, 38 and Craig Rolfe, 26, waited unsuspectingly in the vehicle, they were all shot dead through the head. Tate was the number 1 target the court heard, and the isolated rendezvous was carefully chosen to avoid witnesses. Michael Steele and his alleged right-hand man Jack Womes deny murdering the 3 men who were all from Rettendon Essex. Steele, Womes and Peter Corey of Clacton also deny conspiring to import cannabis into Britain in 1995. The trial continues. The following newspaper article is from the 4th of the 9th, 1997, with the headline, "Bricklayer's Horror at Gun-Blasted Bodies." A bricklayer today revealed the horrifying moment when he and a friend stumbled upon the blasted bodies of 3 slain men. Ken Jiggins and Peter Theobald were on their way to feed pheasants at Mr. Theobald's White House farm in Rettendon on December the 7th, 1995, the Old Bailey heard. But as the pair tried to speak to the driver of a Range Rover to move it, they were confronted with the ghastly sight of the assassinated men. Mr. Jiggins told the court, quote, "I tapped on the driver's window, looked in and saw the driver lying with his head on one side. There was blood coming from his nose, mouth and on his chest. The passenger was sat with his head slumped forward and blood on his chest. As the pair dialed for the police on a mobile phone, they noticed a 3rd body in the back. Earlier, the jury in the triple murder trial of Jack Womes and Michael Steele heard how Steele compared himself to the angel of death after gunning down 3 drug barons. The prosecution claimed Michael Steele made the chilling comment to getaway driver Darren Nichols after killing the friends with the help of his right-hand man Jack Womes. Steele also told him victim Pat Tate squealed like a baby and broke the car window as he tried to get away, said Andrew Munday QC, prosecuting. The court was told Mr. Tate, Craig Rolfe and Tony Tucker went to the rendezvous in Workhouse Lane, Rettendon, believing they would discuss a lucrative cocaine deal. Steele was travelling with them. Womes, wearing overalls and Wellington boots and carrying a large bag, was allegedly lying in wait for the drug barons. But as the vehicle pulled up, Tate's mobile phone rang. His ex-girlfriend Sarah Saunders was on the line. She had seen him earlier in the day and recalled he was hyped up, clearly excited. Mr. Tate told her they would speak later. The time was 6:45 p.m. At 6:59 p.m, Nichols, who had dropped Womes off for what he thought was a business deal and was waiting nearby, received a call on his mobile phone. Womes allegedly said, "All right, Darren, come and get us." When he arrived, Womes climbed into the car wearing surgical gloves splattered with blood. Steele was delayed as his gun had fallen apart. The prosecution claimed the pair then began dismantling their weapons as a shell-shocked Nichols drove off. Steele allegedly then remarked calmly, "That sorted them out. They won't threaten me again." Mr. Munday told the jury, quote, "Steele marvelled at what Womes had done, telling Nichols he was a cold-hearted bastard." The prosecution claimed Steele and Womes had fallen out with Tate and his friends over a cannabis deal, leaving Steele feeling cheated. Steele, 54, of St Mary's Road, Great Bentley, and Womes, 36, of Main Road, Brockford, Suffolk, deny killing Mr Tate of Gordon Road, Basildon, Mr Tucker of High Road, Fobbing, and Mr Rolfe of Calshot Avenue, Chafford 100. Womes and Steele also face a charge with Peter Corey, 45, of London Road, Clacton, of conspiring to smuggle cannabis between August 1, 1995 and November 10, 1995. All three have pleaded not guilty. Steele has also denied a separate charge of illegally possessing an 8-shot pump-action shotgun. The trial continues. The following newspaper article is from the 17th of the 9th, 1997, with the headline, "I fired a shotgun in the past. Grass tells murder trial." A supergrass at the centre of a triple gangland killing yesterday admitted he had fired a shotgun before. Police informant Darren Nichols told defending barrister Graham Parkins at the Old Bailey that he did have knowledge of using such a weapon. Drug barons Tony Tucker, 38, Pat Tate, 37 and 26-year-old Craig Rolfe were blasted to death with a pump-action shotgun as they sat in their Range Rover in a deserted country lane in the quiet Essex village of Rettendon. The following newspaper article is from the 23rd of February 1996 with the headline, "The Crazed Drugs Giant Who Had to Die." One of 3 drug dealers, cold-bloodedly executed in Essex, was killed because he was going berserk on drugs and trying to muscle in on the turf of other criminals, police have revealed. Patrick Tate, 37, had become dangerously deluded and out of control after embarking on a massive drugs binge on his release from prison 6 weeks before his death. Described as a giant of a man, he took heroin, cocaine, cannabis and ecstasy in large amounts, as well as pumping himself full of steroids to build his body up to its huge size. He was by nature a violent man, and with the use of these drugs he was becoming more or less totally out of control, said Detective Superintendent Ivan Dibley, who is leading the murder investigation. "I believe he was the catalyst for the killing. He was trying to muscle in on a fairly slick organisation which had been running quite well without him, and he was upsetting the apple cart. We know of 1 or 2 instances where he attacked people while running amok on drugs, and he had ruffled the feathers of other gang members since his release from prison. Police believe the 2 other victims, Craig Rolfe, 26, and Tony Tucker, 38, might simply have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The following newspaper article is from the 17th of the 9th, 1997, with the headline, "Main Witness Admits Being Very Confused." The star witness in a triple gangland murder trial has claimed he was just confused after a defence barrister contradicted his conflicting evidence, an Old Bailey jury was told. Darren Nichols, who alleged he was the unwitting getaway driver for the 2 men accused of the killings, Jack Womes, 36, and Michael Steele, 54, told Graham Parkins QC, quote, "You would have to be in my situation to understand. You try and explain it to someone when you've just been a witness to a murder. I was a very confused person." Mr. Parkins was poring over transcripts of early interviews which Nichols had with police in May 1996. Pat Tate, 37, of Gordon Road, Basildon, Tony Tucker, 38, of High Road, Fobbing, and Craig Rolfe, 26, of Calshot Avenue, Chafford 100, were gunned down on December 6, 1995. Nichols has already alleged in court that he drove Womes and Steele away from the scene of the killings, remote Workhouse Lane in Rettendon, thinking they had been to a drugs meet. Mr. Parkins revealed on Monday that Nichols only made that claim after police had threatened to charge him with the killings. Both Womes of Main Road, Brockford, Suffolk, and Steele of St Mary's Road, Great Bentley, deny murder. During his 4th day of cross-examination, Mr. Parkins revealed that Nichols had changed his version of what happened that night several times over a course of interviews with police. But Nichols protested, quote, "I was trying to get across to them about the murders, but it was difficult." Mr. Parkins also dismisses Nichols' claim that the getaway car was a Passat he had sold to Steele. He told him, quote, "Mr. Steele's case is that he did ask about buying that car, but rejected it when he saw the condition mechanically. The court heard it leaked oil and hydraulic fluid, the heating was faulty and the exhaust was noisy." Mr. Parkins added, quote, "You have told the jury that this was the getaway car for a triple shooting." The trial continues. The following newspaper articles from the 17th of the 10th, 1997, with the headline, Tears of Drug Baron's Mistress. The tearful teenage mistress of a murdered drug baron broke down in the witness box as she gave evidence at the trial of his alleged killers. Donna Garwood, formerly of Fairview Road, Basildon, struggled to hold back her emotions as she spoke. She was 15 when she began a 2-year affair with gang leader and bouncer boss Tony Tucker. They met at Raquel's nightclub in Basildon. Tucker, 38, of High Road, Fobbing, was blasted to death in a Range Rover on a country track in Rettendon. His body was found alongside Pat Tate, 37, of Gordon Road, Basildon, and Craig Rolfe, 26, of Calshot Avenue, Chafford 100, on December 7, 1995. The court had earlier heard from Supergrass, an alleged getaway driver at the time of the murders, Darren Nichols, that Michael Steele and Jack Womes shot the trio after Tate threatened to kill Steele. He claimed the pair fell out when a drug deal went wrong. Nichols testified that Steele travelled back to the Amsterdam cafe where he had bought the drugs and got a refund. Tate met him in the Belgian city of Ostend to take back his share of the cash. Miss Garwood yesterday told the jury that she had accompanied Tate and others to Ostend on November 16, 1995. Tate paid for everything including meals, ferry tickets, drinks and hotel bills. When they reached Ostend, they went to a pub and Tate left them to talk to a man she later identified as Michael Steele, who was waiting outside. She said, quote, "They came back into the pub together. This guy Michael was carrying a carrier bag. The two men sat at a separate table to the party and talked together for some time, and Miss Garwood said later that evening she noticed Tate then had the bag." The court heard she was asked to identify Steele in an identity parade at Colchester but did not. Under cross-examination by the defence, she pointed out Steele in the dock. The court also heard yesterday from forensic scientist John Willier, who examined Steele's boat 2 days after he allegedly smuggled the dud cannabis into the country. Steele and Womes were arrested on suspicion of drug smuggling, but no charges were brought against them. Mr. Willier said he had discovered 262 micrograms of cannabis resin in the vessel. Both Womes and Steele denied the triple murder charges and separate counts of conspiring with Peter Corey, 45, of London Road, Clacton, to smuggle cannabis. The trial continues. The following newspaper articles from the 6th of the 11th, 1997, with the headline, Supergrass always on my doorstep. A triple murder defendant has made sensational claims that the prosecution's star witness was a major drug smuggler who had admitted he was willing to kill. Michael Steele, who along with mechanic Jack Womes, has been charged with ruthlessly executing drug dealers Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe, began his evidence on the first day of the defence case. Looking relaxed in a grey tweed jacket and open blue necked shirt, the 54-year-old walked the short distance from the dock to the witness box, flanked by a lone security guard. His barrister, Graham Parkins QC, questioned him about some of the evidence the jury has already heard in this long-running trial. When it came to the topic of Supergrass Darren Nichols, who provides the basis of the prosecution case, Steele said they had met in Hollesley Bay Prison in Suffolk. He revealed, quote, "I found there were two sides to him, a very silly side and a very educated side. He's what I would call a habitual, always turning up on my doorstep." It was during one of those visits to Steele's home in St Mary's Road, Great Bentley, Essex, from which Steele ran his business MJS Commerce, that Nichols allegedly made his astonishing confession. Steele told a spellbound Old Bailey jury it was after Nichols had visited Basildon Hospital in November 1994, where Tate was being treated for a gunshot wound to his arm. He said, "Nichols told me, I could do that, I could shoot someone, I've often spoken to myself about it." When he got to know Nichols, he was quite schizophrenic. When he said this, he was standing with his hands in his pockets and his head bowed. He looked like a child that had been scolded. Steele said Nichols had been very upset by his visit to the hospital, as Tate and his friends had ridiculed him. Steele also told the jury that Nichols was a drugs importer who brought cannabis into the country via car ferries using drivers known as suicide jockeys. Nichols has claimed Steele and Womes, 36, of Main Road, Brockford, Suffolk, shot 37-year-old Tate of Gordon Road, Basildon, Rolfe, 26, of Calshot Avenue, Chafford 100, and Tucker, 38, of High Road, Fobbing, after a drug deal went wrong. He has testified he was the unwitting getaway driver for the killings down remote Workhouse Lane in Rettendon on December 6, 1995. Both Steele and Womes denied triple murder and conspiring with Peter Corey, 45, of London Road, Clacton, to smuggle drugs. Corey has also pleaded not guilty. Mr. Parkins then asked Steele about his relationship with victim Pat Tate, who dealt drugs in jail and often took up to 8 ecstasy tablets a day himself. Steele said, quote, "When I first knew him, he had a magnetic personality, and while 70% of people liked him, 30% loved him. But he gradually changed into a junkie." Steele also talked of his close friendship with co-defendant Jack Womes, who he met in prison through a shared love of boats. Michael Steele admitted he was no stranger to the criminal courts. His defence barrister, Graham Parkins QC, asked, "Is it true you are content for the jury to know things about your past?" He replied, "I would like the jury to know everything there is to know about me." Mr. Parkins then read out his long list of previous convictions. March 1964, sent to prison for 12 months for stealing property and driving while disqualified. 1966, sent to prison for 6 months for stealing property and assaulting causing actual bodily harm. June 1966, a 12-month conditional discharge for stealing from a vehicle. 1968, fined £15 for possession of an offensive weapon, a motorcycle chain. February 1969, an 18-month jail term suspended for 3 years for trying to cheat customs of oil duty. March 1972, sentenced to 5 years in prison for theft from a motor vehicle. February 1980, suspended sentence of 6 months for theft. September 1980, sent to jail for 12 months for stealing tyres and wheels and being in breach of a suspended sentence. 1986, 1-year conditional discharge for criminal damage. June 1990, 9 years in prison for importing 300 kilos of cannabis in a light aircraft. Steele, a highly experienced pilot, was also ordered to hand over to customs £120,000, half his former marital home, £15,000 from his mum's home, his 33-foot motor cruiser, his aircraft and his Land Cruiser.